This time on Low Boost, I'm going to go over the reasons why the newedge Mustang should be your first sports car. I get asked a lot of questions from people getting into cars and what they should get as their first car. And obviously, it is very subjective on a lot of different fronts in terms of styling and what you like and how fast you want to go and all those things. I'm going to go over some objective things that you just can't argue as to why the newedge Mustang should be your first sports car, especially if you're younger and you don't have a ton of money. You can get a 5-speed GT Mustang for like less than $5,000 pretty easily, and it's probably going to be in decent shape. Don't worry too much about the miles. The engines on these things were very reliable. It's more about rust. You want to make sure you find a car that doesn't have a lot of rust on it, which, depending on where you are, could be tricky. But I was able to get this car in the Northeast with no rust on it. So if I could do it, anybody can. For $5,000, you get a car that has 260 horsepower, 302 pound-feet of torque. Is a blast to drive and can do a lot of things pretty well, and it has a really good aftermarket. Part of the second reason why the newedge Mustang should be your first car you should get is because it has such a great aftermarket for parts, support, resources. I mean, there's multiple websites where you could get tons of parts for this car, both for maintenance and to modify it to make it fast. Now, 260 horsepower by today's standards isn't a lot, but there's a lot you can do to these cars, from superchargers, coyote swaps, turbo kits that can make these cars really competitive if you're looking at a fast street car. But in terms of track racing and drifting, you don't need a lot of power to have fun. And this car has more than enough power to do both of those things really well. You have a lot of resources of other people that have done similar things to the car that you're working on, and they can share their experiences, which I have found to be very, very supportive amongst the newedge Mustang community. Whether it's drag racing, track racing, or drifting, there's a lot of people that have a lot of knowledge and know-how that have been around these cars for years and years, and they can help you out big time. The other thing when it comes to parts is, comparatively to some other manufacturers, parts are cheap on this thing. You could modify and do a lot of maintenance on this thing without really breaking the bank, which, listen, I have an E36 and I love it, but not only are those more expensive to get into nowadays, they're a lot more expensive to repair and maintain, whereas this thing is very, very cheap. I got an upgraded radiator, 3-row, full aluminum radiator for this thing. It was $200. The same radiator on my Corvette is probably $1,000 in today's money, which is crazy to think about. Water pump on this thing was $35. I mean, everything's cheap on this because they put these parts in so many things, and you can get a lot of them on like Rock Auto or other websites that I'm not going to name unless they want to sponsor me. Or really, at your local auto parts store, it'll be pretty affordable. I mean, there's tons of room for activities in that engine bay. So if you're looking at getting a car that you can work on and learn how to do maintenance and modifications to, this car is really it. I've done most of the modifications on the equivalent of jack stands, which I have quick jacks, which is just easier and safer, but you could do all this stuff on jack stands if you really want to. I replaced the transmission in this car on quick jacks, and even though the one that I put in doesn't have third gear and I need to do it again, it's pretty easy to do. I suggest getting a transmission that has third gear, or that you know that has third gear when you put it in, so you don't have to do it twice like me. But all in all, it's pretty easy in the grand scheme of things compared to some other cars that you could be working on. I think this is one of the best sports car bargains you can get for the money now, because people have kind of forgotten about these cars because everybody wants a Coyote because they want that Coyote power. But these are fun, cheap, inexpensive cars you can have a ton of fun in, do a lot of different things, and you're not going to break the bank, especially if you're a young person just getting into cars and you don't have a ton of money. Which, listen, we've all been there. It's okay. If you're interested in learning more about the newedge Mustang, I have an entire build series on my YouTube channel, Low Boost Films. You can check it out there. And if you can't wait until next week's episode, make sure to check out these videos that I already have ready to go.